Crouch. Bind. Set.
Joe presents the House of Rugby, together with Guinness.
Hello, Dream Team. Welcome to a new edition of House of Rugby, brought to you by Joe, together with our very good friends at Guinness. My name is Alex Payne, and guess who's back? Welcome home, James Haskell. He has risen again to sitteth at the right hand of Mike the Almighty. How is the foot, first of all? You were away last week, off sick.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I've got a red phone in my house that went off. Apparently, viewing figures were rock bottom this week.
No, that's simply not true.
Apparently, Trimble's chat was horrific. I missed out on the fact that everyone got into tins about hating Ireland, which he does. I saw him burning a flag before I came in. And I'm just here to kind of save the day, get things back on track, bring a bit of energy. Because, you know, you're good, but your chat's not the best. And you're like little old Fauntleroy, and they need me in here, bringing the energy, keeping him from causing massive offence. Don't look like you're tired of our chat already.
I'm not tired of your chat. I was just trying to think of nice ways of comparing you and Andrew, and there
aren't any. We miss Andrew.
I was thinking about, you know, you look at Andrew, he's professional, and ultimately probably one of the best in the world, probably going to go in favourite for a World Cup, but ultimately, as me and you know, pretty boring to watch. So
now we're touring. Now we are touring. That's it. It's war in it.
You know, Tindall-Irish relations have just gone probably down the pan again, but, you know, he was a thoroughly nice lad.
He was indeed.
It's always good to have the hairy, freaky sized beast.
I was going to listen to it, but I was worried I might fall asleep while I was driving, which was dangerous, so I didn't bother.
You know, I actually was thinking, I actually want Trimble back this week, because do you know what happened this weekend?
Go on.
And we didn't get an invite to? A certain young man sat in this vicinity, stag do.
Yes.
And we did not get the invite.
I'm happily married, you're happily married. Do you want to tell us a little bit more? And first of all, why didn't we get the call out? I thought we were
I'm assuming, first and foremost, it's not a proper stag.
No, obviously not.
Because it was at Soho Farmhouse, so it's like...
that's my kind of territory.
Let's be very clear. I'm disappointed you think you wouldn't get an invite if I was going to have a proper stag or to the wedding. And yourself, you know.
We'll come back to you.
As we're working together, it was a mini...
Well, can you explain what
it was a mini sort of stag do, which didn't start that well because I thought I would be playing for Saints when this was booked in, and then I thought I would be doing some corporate stuff, but I wasn't. But the idea was the guys were going to come to the game, watch the game, and then we were going to go off to Soho Farmhouse, just a small select crew. But we still went ahead with the game. My best man didn't bother turning up. Paul Doran-Jones didn't.
He didn't turn up to your stag do?
No, he turned up, but missed out the game part.
Oh, okay.
It's funny because I actually thought it was your stag do because I saw you on the highlights package of that, and I saw you dressed as Del Boy. So I actually thought it was a fancy dress stag.
My minder jacket. I sold a lot of second-hand cars that night. And the best part was that I was having to sit in the stand, couldn't drink because you're in the stand and everyone's looking at you. So it does not great.
Protein shakes only.
Yeah, literally.
Lucozade bottles, you can put anything in.
My dad was just smashing the pints and the chicken dippers or whatever. So we did that.
Preaching brand Haskell.
We were winning. It was a bit of a frustrating game. I left with sort of 6 minutes to go before the end. I don't normally do that. I can't hate people who do that. But I wanted to get out, just obviously not to get naused. And we only lost as well. So it wasn't a great start to the weekend. But actually, all in all, it was great. What I did learn is that I'm a terrible, terrible, terrible drinker.
As Guinness would say, drink responsibly.
The reason I've heard about this is because some people who I know at Soho Farmhouse said, we had James Haskell there. I don't know why he felt it was his duty to DJ all night.
Yeah,
are you one of those? Are you a DJ ball?
No.
Let me in.
No. Okay, I like doing that. I honestly, there was a lady behind the decks that in the last 10 minutes of the evening, I went up to go to the toilet, and she turns out she'd interviewed me for that fantastic charity, Nordhoff Robbins, and she reminded me of that, and she said, I know you said you were a DJ, would you like to have a go? Well, I was steaming, so I thought it was a great idea, and there was a lot of characters like yourself and like Tins who were...
Red cords and bros.
Yeah, a lot of custard chinos around, and I got on the ones and twos and just did a little set.
What was the first track you went to?
Well, I went house. I said to them, listen, because I think they were playing... Chesney Hawks or whatever. So I just went, switched that straight out for a bit of camel fat or something else. But actually, according to Doz, who did turn up at that part, it actually went all right. Good. But it was actually quite well behaved. The champion was my father. I mean, he just drank everyone under the table, buried everyone. So,
how were you on Sunday?
Horrific. Like I'm not very good at it. Best time. Like I can drink. Obviously, we don't do it very often, but it's the next day. I'm pants. Like I'm like headache. Just can't do anything. But a couple of Bloody Marys and I was back into gear.
I imagine you're a bit like Withnail, aren't you? It's bulls. I'll take 10 of you on and run a mile, whatever the quote is. Straight up and at
I
them.
couldn't possibly comment
the
on
finest wines in Christendom, and I want them now.
You want
that. I always
cake
find
and
the
fine
next day
wine.
is the best day.
I'm going to sack the lot of you.
He reminds me of that guy, you know, what is it with Nella when he goes, he says, you know, I can out-medicate you, and the bloke takes his glasses down, his eyes are completely black.
You know when you've been spoken to.
Yeah.
What a film.
Very posh for those.
Do you want to talk about rugby or do you want to keep some...
Yeah, let's have a little bit of chat. I missed it, because I know last week was actually quite rugby...
We had a lot
centric,
of very nice comments about it. Actually, you were mentioned a lot last week, so we can start in two places this time around. Would you like to start with the big topic, which is obviously the ring fencing of the Premiership, or would you like to start by clearing up the fact that everyone got in touch thinking you were the person that Sam Burgess was talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
around the ego. So I very quickly remind everybody, tournaments are not won by the coaching staff or one player. It takes commitment from the full group. I guarantee this, I was committed, but others had their own agendas. What cost us an early exit was individual egos and selfish players not following our leader, which essentially cost the coach and other great men their jobs. And one or two people pointed at you.
I know, and I like our listenership and our viewership, because this show is available on YouTube if you haven't checked it out. And I just couldn't. Yeah, I was a bit surprised that, because I'm not. I mean, to be fair, Tins is actually quite a good person to talk to about it, because he's kind of known me all the way through, and I would never be. I might have an outgoing personality, but I'd never be derisive. I'd never be kind of that person. I know exactly who Sam's talking about, and I understand.
I asked him, and I'm going to ask you. You can plead the fifth, but
yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth just because it would send viewing figures through. But you know, I just don't really want to throw anyone under the bus at this stage. I'll say it for your
Was it the same person? Have you compared notes?
I haven't actually compared notes on it.
Okay. Write it down on a piece of paper, and we won't reveal it.
Yeah, I obviously then got messages on Twitter going, "Oh, Haskell." People like James aren't going to be the Cyril sneers who want to throw other people under the bus. He's quite happy to share his opinion. Loud, he's great to be around the team, and he's a team man. And he'll play for the team, and he'll do what's right if a coach asks for it. Even if he disagrees with it, he'll have that conversation, but he'll still do what he's asked to do, because that's being part of a team. The people you're worried about are the ones who just hide in the corner and
kick stones. That's the problem.
You were obviously in that squad. I mean, do you recognise the out of control egos and selfish players that he talks about?
No, I think I love Sam. I think he's an incredible player. I think he's had an unbelievable career and is carrying on doing that. I think that he obviously took a lot of flack for 2015. I think unfairly. I think he always tried to acquit himself in the best possible way he could. He always put his body on the line. I thought, there were some incredible tackles he put in during that tournament. And I think that the sad reality is that, especially when it comes to English sport, there are some fair weather fans that don't watch any club rugby, don't watch anything, but they come out the woodwork with Six Nations or World Cups, and then it's a cheap, easy thing. And I think, again, we've talked about the merits of social media, so I won't go into it. So I think he feels a little bit threatened. I would say that I don't recognise everything he's saying. I think I know exactly who he's talking about, but I think one of the issues was, the comfort to be able to speak your mind. And I think that because we talked about lots of things about people being task focused and people focused. If you're very task focused in everything you do, it's great. But if you come under any pressure and the relationships haven't been developed, or players aren't able to speak, or things aren't being said out in the open, then that's what can erode erode a situation. And I think there are small elements of that, but actually I think, on the whole, everybody in that 2015 tournament acquitted themselves unbelievably well. And one bugbear that I've always got is that we worked so hard, and from Stuart Lancaster to the top, right down to the kit men, everybody worked hard. I've never worked hard. Eddie might stab me in the neck, but in terms of like the intensity, the training, I was the fittest I've ever been in that place, just because we went to Denver. We were running at altitude every single day. But I don't think things were obviously completely right. But actually, what upsets me is that we didn't perform, and the team should take responsibility for that. We didn't necessarily get selection right. We didn't do bits and pieces we needed to get right, but we did work really hard. And everyone tried to pull in the right direction. But when things came on pressure, perhaps some of the foundation bits weren't as strong as people thought, and then you get guys separating off.
Here's a question. If you hadn't won in 2003, how big would the fallout have been?
That would have been huge. Well,
because we talked last week about some big individuals in that squad. I'd love to know, would you have seen a pretty seismic bust up?
Well, I don't know whether I don't know, actually, because a lot of that group then retired anyway, so I don't know how it would have fallen out. Obviously, it'd been a disaster for Clive, because he'd basically pinned his last 4 years on every loss, every Grand Slam loss that we had along the way was, this is not what we're worried about winning, we're worried about winning the World Cup. And so
I just sort of wonder whether winning masks everything.
No, because I can genuinely, hand on heart, can't remember having any arguments in camp with people. You know,
Really?
it was just a self-policing. If you had... The only person who really got bullied was Joe Worsley. Because Clive would ask him a question, he'd stand up, give me an answer, and go, "No, Joe, that's completely wrong. Sit down." But everything was just dealt with on the field, and it worked. And so I can't see it. I try and describe that group as, you know, when I was playing for Bath at that time, we were talking about Bath earlier, suddenly we'd sort of fallen off the rails a little bit. We weren't winning that many games. So I just loved going to England, where I knew we'd probably win. So yeah, I think, and everyone sort of felt that way. So it was a pretty good environment.
I've seen the Joe Worsley thing firsthand. Like, I love Joe. He helped me incredibly throughout my career. He was probably one of the biggest influences. He taught me to tackle, taught me to do everything, brought the best parts out of the game. You know, I would spend every single day after training tackling with him, but I knew that he always got stick. Lawrence always used to get into him. Every time he spoke, they always said to him, "Joe, take your gum shield out, mate." he never had it in. But I genuinely mean this. So when we in 2007, pre-World Cup camp, right, that's another World Cup that went well. Oh yeah, boys got to final, almost won it. I know, but there was that initial bit. Do you remember at Portugal? We spent 7 weeks doing exits.
Yeah.
And anyway, and we
practice restarts.
Yeah, it was.
You quite a few of those.
It was
Brian
mental.
Ashton, just do all the forwards. Just go play. Forwards are like, what does that mean?
There was two bits. Sorry, I just think these stories. Is that one time they took Jason Robinson came over to take us to do like some footwork stuff, and was literally losing his shit that nobody could do any footwork. And he was like, "It's not that hard. You just take the guy out," and was like stepping everyone. And then we were doing it, and like you know, Martin Corrie and me with a turning circle of a bus couldn't do anything. He was losing stuff.
Rhinos on roller skates.
But it had Steve Peters, you know, the guy from the Chimp Paradox. Everything came in. And he did a thing, and he was basically saying that essentially we should all be more like Lawrence. He said, "Oh, the way Lawrence walks." Do you remember this? He's like walked.
I wasn't there at that bit.
Were you not?
No, because I broke my leg. But I went to the early camp that was up in Bath.
Yeah.
And then when they cut it down, that's when you all went off there. So I slid out of there.
But that was when. So basically, they said, "Be more like Lawrence." The way he cries on the camera. I was like, "What? When the red light goes on, he knows when to cry." That's Pavlov's thing, isn't it? Like, and he said that you walk out with your jaw out, your chest up, and have confidence. And basically, we were sitting in a meeting, and Joe Worsley answered a question. Right, said the exact answer. Right, everyone ignored him. Lawrence, who was sitting where I'm sitting, if you're Joe, answered and said exactly what Joe had said. They went, "Great answer, Lawrence." Joe Worsley was like, "This is bullshit. Am I blind?" And honestly, it happened about 5 or 6 times. So I know exactly what he's talking about.
Hell of a defensive player, though.
Yeah.
Oh my God, best tackle in the world.
Teeth.
Best tackle in the world.
The best thing is about him, because if he didn't get you with his shoulder, his head was big enough
Exactly.
to actually just
Like
fell
a
you on
roundabout.
itself. Yeah, fell you on itself.
You know, you said about the self-policing thing. I'm very interested about this, because when I first came into the changing room, so when I was kind of a fan of WAS, kind of 15, 16, I got some exposure to the team, and then I came on board at 17. Everyone in the changing room just seems to be like older and more mature than now. I look at myself and I go, I'm an older player, or I look at other older players, and yes, people are responsible, and there's great leads. Like, I think Dylan's fantastic. I think he's a guy that I really admire in terms of the way he operates. But players are getting younger, isn't it? Just that life experience thing. I think if you look at that group of players, it's very hard now. Like, you know, when New Zealand won, they still had a lot of good players, whereas I think now, worldly wise, maturity, exposure to the real world, exposure to difficult conversations. You know, yes, we got privilege and great professional environments, but I don't know if that takes away a bit from having a personality. I don't know.
No, it's sort of what we touched on last week in terms of you don't get those old school. So when I turned, what we talked about last week, when I turned up at Bath, I wasn't allowed to speak to Jerry until I'd earned his respect, and then. And we talked.
Then you actually found out you didn't want to speak to him.
He actually did talk to him. I was like, I haven't really missed out much. But then it's sort of, and I've seen the sort of demise of it. And we talked about Gloucester and how suddenly, the owner comes to me, who's at the time Ryan Walkershaw was 28 when he owned the club, and he was like, I feel there's a bit of a bullying mentality about the old boys. And I'm like, it's not a bullying mentality. It's a making sure that they don't make mistakes repeatedly. And it's drilling into them that you don't get above your station. Yes, you can talk and share your opinions, but you've got to actually do what you're doing on the field. And I mean, some of it in the past has gone too far, but it's all about growth. But then
You're about to smile there. Are you thinking of a particular incident?
No. It's just about the growth of a player and actually instilling that maturity in terms of getting the job done first. And that's what rugby was in the past. I think when you're talking about it was getting the job done rather than necessarily having a load of fun whilst you did it.
Yeah.
It was about making sure that you won. And whereas now I think all these young players come in and told to be fearless and just go and play. And then, with that comes sort of open-mindedness, which we all want to encourage. But then sometimes when you get into tough situations, they can't deal with it because they haven't had that old player drill it into you. So I think it's just a natural evolution of the game.
What's interesting, I'm sort of moving the plates around a little bit here. I was going to talk about the relegation thing, but given we're talking about old school rugby, I'd love to get your views on the Barbars. And you've played and coached for the Barbars, is that right?
Yep.
I remember doing a game once actually where I think Dean Ryan said that you were carried onto the team bus to go to the stadium.
Yeah,
is that fair?
I was thinking on the way up whether I tell that story. Yeah, I got Joe Takiri'd.
Right.
Yeah, basically so Dean had asked me, because I'd done it before, to come and coach with him, and I was like, yes, okay, I'll definitely be in. And I sort of said, right, I really need to just limit how much time I spend with the lads because I'm a
coach.
Yeah, I'm still playing, but I'm a coach. And so let them have their fun, and I'm just going to sit back. And I'd done such a good job.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember the name of the restaurant. I was sat there with Andrew Horry, and obviously he was the same age as me. He's like, oh, let's just have one more.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go. I can't remember the bar we went to, but just one more. We'll go and have one, and then we can go. And that was at like 10 past 11, maybe. And then Joe Takiri'd carried me into the hotel at 7:45 a.m. And the boys were on the bus at 8:45. And Joe made that bus and trained. And I was in my pit for...
That is a gentle loosener for a big day. Obviously, the reason we're talking about the Barbars is they had a memorable win over Argentina. I don't know what the memorable pre-night, post-night would have been, but...
They can't have done it that way because no Barbarians team comes back that much in the last 20 minutes. Normally you are fading. You get a fast start and then you're hanging on for dear life.
The reason I remember that story is I remember Dowie Morris doing a pre-match interview with you in the changing rooms, and I mean I'm not even sure you were awake. You sort of there was one eye open, staring into the abyss. But I felt for you at that point. Where do the Barbars fit into modern day rugby? Are they always fighting for their place?
I don't think so. I think over the last sort of 3 years, they've had great results. I would be devastated. One of my happiest moments was when I saw a Twitter picture of Mickey Steele-Bodger with the cup.
Yeah.
The first and only president of the Barbarian Rugby Football Club. And, I think he's actually passed away twice whilst on tours and stuff. And the personal doctor who walks around with him has always brought him back.
And he was pissed. Someone said that he was like really pissed off that they brought him back because he wanted to die with the lads.
Yeah. Right.
So he was out on the thing. I think one whiskey keeled over, and then that would be his epitaph, and it would be unbelievable. And then he woke up and it's like, "You bastard! You woke me up.
Why have you brought me back?"
Because
is that right?
Yeah. There is a story. Because I played for the Steel Bodgers against Cambridge a few times, and I met Mickey that night. Obviously, he's like a legend.
Yeah.
And I'd heard about it, and actually I went right. I scored 2 tries, and I thought, oh, this will be on my way to a Barbarians thing. And then I met up with him later, and we had a night out in Cambridge or Oxford, whichever one we were playing. I think it was Cambridge, and I saw him the next time, and he was like, I saw him at the East India Club, so you can tell how posh I was when
what
you
were
left
you
school.
Doing at the East India Club?
I used to be a member.
Working the door.
I used to be a member of the East India Club because you got it as part of like school leavers, so you got like a reduced membership. But then the problem is you can only go in if you're wearing a suit. I didn't have a suit with me, so I just never used it. That's why I prefer kind of Soho House. I remember seeing him, and he was like, "James," and I was like, "Yes." He went, "You're a bad boy," and I was like, "What?" He goes, "Bringing ladies back to the hotel," and I was like, Mickey, honestly, it wasn't me, mate. Like, student, like, there's not a slim pickings, right? It wasn't me. He was like, you scored 2 tries, but you brought ladies back. And I think I got that like a year later, 5 years later, I think 10 years later, he still thinks I was doing a bit of business with a couple of, and it wasn't me.
Had a bit of previous, though.
Well, yeah, I did, yeah. But that went well. And, so I was a bit concerned. I've actually never played for the Barbarians, so maybe he's still holding.
You should write him a letter to say, time is of the essence, I'd like to play this summer.
I've actually been invited. I was invited to play against the Lions in...
oh, were you?
Yeah, but I had to have knee surgery. And
You just missed a 70-point drumming, mate. I
know.
Look what it did for Chris Ashton, though, last summer.
Yeah,
He slipped him a business card and said, come back.
I think there is always going to be the time, and I think what the Barbars have done, that they crossed I would say called the alcoholic line. So it always used to be about crack, Castagnier drinking champagne after he just knocked over a kick. Whereas now I think to make it relevant, it doesn't have those nights out. Those boys that weren't out on the smash 4 nights out of 5.
Yeah.
They couldn't have played as well as they did without that. And I think that's the evolution of the Barbars now, is that people will actually treat it. They'll probably have a good night out on the Tuesday or the Wednesday when they meet out, but then I think they'll actually. Because I know that Mickey's it's always about results, and he's always done that, and he's always made it, when people are late, he hates that. It's all the old school things that make rugby, it's drilled into him. And I think that's now passed down where they've performed. Obviously, they beat England last year. They beat Argentina. It's not the first team Argentina team, but they've produced some great tries, and it was a great game to watch, and that's what Barbarian rugby is. So
Would the Barbars beat Ireland?
They did beat them actually a couple of years ago. I mean, times have changed a lot, but they played in Limerick 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, we know Ireland are a brilliant team, so
I worry where this is going to end up.
I have to say that of all the things, talking from a different perspective, someone hasn't done it. It's 100% on my to-do list. I think it still has a massive place in rugby. I think, I'd absolutely love it. I think it's a massive, massive honour to do it, and I think that hopefully players coming through appreciate that, and it keeps going because it is so cool. And it's the best thing about it is just getting to meet and play with guys that you've never met before from across the pond and
how much fun is it? And sort of who runs the show?
So much fun.
Is it really?
Yeah, I know the day. The silver lining of not being involved in 2012 was then straight away I got to play for the Lions 2012, 2013, 2014 and coach. Yeah.
And as a coach, is it something that you sort of feel the pressure to come up with a whack out? Because they bring back the wall, scrum half tap, front row lines up, and you all run in different directions.
When I did a bit of the coaching stuff, I went back and watched all the old great tries and tried to bring out a couple of the ones that 20 years ago that scored.
Yeah.
One was with a big wall, and there was like 3 different loops.
Yeah.
And we did it, and if the guy, I can't remember who was playing 10, if he'd have picked the right option, we'd have ghosted through.
But I tell you, talk about those old school moves. It's obviously the way that rugby moves on.
Yeah,
like some bits still work, but it wasn't a while ago that someone came into England camp who used to play and thought that he was like seeing the defence and thought he was going to come up with this unbelievable move that was going to cut the ribbons. So he got the lads to do it. It was like, this is going to work. And the guy just got folded in half. And that's why when I watch back at these old tries, obviously I know the game's different, but when you see these amazing tries, and you're like, that's what rugby should be like. It's like, have you seen the defence? They're all like in a herd that run across the field. And then people try and tackle like this. It's optional. Defence is optional. No wonder they're scoring unbelievable tries.
It's where Back's got such a bad name from watching those videos, isn't it?
Right.
The Jessicas or whatever they call Mickey Skinner.
Jessies. I remember that.
The Jessicas. I remember we had that video, bosh, bang, wallop. It was done by Mickey Skinner, who made one tackle. It wasn't even that good.
Mark Session. Oh, come on, that was a hell of a tackle.
Only because he tore the back of his boot, didn't he?
Yeah.
But in relation to what? Like,
well, it was a 5-minute scrum and he put
tackled
him back 10 yards. England won a World Cup quarter-final off the back of it. And I'm going to do the sort of fan thing here. I would love to see more deception in the game. And actually, I remember Woodward saying once that he brought a magician into Pennyhill Park and wanted the magician to try and hide the ball on the field of play. And then this was in 2004, and he then fell out with the RFU and left. You're turning your nose down as if you're trying not to laugh. But why is there not more of the wall and the wedge and deception?
Wait, it's so lovely that you're such a fan.
Because
it's so nice to see that side of you.
Thanks, James. It's a real privilege to be sitting in your sidecar. Thank you. Goggles down, gloves on.
Sometimes I think if you go very old school, you can actually have success. But I think if you stick 8 people in a wall, it doesn't take that many defenders to just chop them back in the back of their knees and they're out of play. So, I think it's, as James said, defences are so organised now and everyone knows their role.
Yeah.
You really have to be in the magic circle to make it work.
It doesn't surprise me in the slightest that you are doing down deception in the game.
No.
Let's just keep it as whammo and bosh.
No, I like deception.
Whammo and bosh.
You done me. I'm still buying it. I'm like, I keep going off the field.
Yeah.
No, I've got to tell you something because this is so good. I forgot about this and I've never told anyone about this. So I and I bet no doubt this bloke probably watches this, and I don't know his name, and I hope he didn't tell all his family that he was doing it. But I was at Penny Hill with a teammate. I won't embarrass my teammate, and some bloke came up to me and said, "I've got a letter for Eddie Jones," right? So I was like, okay.
Is this a player or just a member of the public?
Member of the public had come down and said, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to. It said, I've got this letter thing, I think it's going to help England, right? So I was like, right, okay, so
immediately have to open that.
Yeah.
Steam it open.
So I was like, I can't. Like, it's obviously private. So I gave it to the boss. Said, so I will pass this on for you. And he goes, look, it's a few ideas to help with England's attack. I think it's going to fix a few problems. And I wasn't sure whether I should come down, but I'm going to do it. So I was like, okay, right. So me and this other player were like, oh my God, what is this bloke put in this letter? Like, has he got the key? Is there something we haven't spotted? So I gave it to the boss. The boss opened it, looked at it, through it, and then said, you can read it. I looked at it, and he said it was all about deception. He said that modern rugby was all about deception, but he didn't reveal any ideas. His whole thing could he come in and watch a few sessions, and then he would reveal his secrets that would unlock everything. Yeah. So we still don't know if he had the key to rugby, but basically he made out he had the key.
Thanks for giving my letter to Eddie.
Yeah. But I'm so gutted because I thought there was going to be like plans and maps. It was like it was like a lot of like drivel, but then there was literally, can I come and watch? And I think that I can take control. And deception, as we all know, is the key to winning rugby. I was like, that's not the key to winning rugby, mate. That's what I think at club rugby is the key to winning rugby. That's not what happens at international level. Otherwise, it'd always be running.
I'd love to see a little.
What do you
watch
want
the
to
hands.
see?
What
do you want to see?
What do you want to see?
That's what a runaround is now.
Yeah, I know.
But what about the I saw Lima Sufawanga, when he turned around and kicked the ball backwards over his head, and they almost scored. But every now and then you get a game where someone does something. That bloke...
Austin did that for Kenny to score.
He did.
Against Scotland, oh my God, it's going to be embarrassing. The back row who scored that try at the line-out the other week.
Hamish Watson.
Yeah, Hamish Watson. That's such a nose. I love it.
Yeah,
and
deception.
Someone has to fill in the blanks.
Quins' try. Front line out.
Yeah.
Wasp winning the Heineken Cup with Ibanez and Owen Redden down the front.
Yeah.
So there is still deception in the game. It's just not, the wall comes out occasionally. You just can't do that. I think you should bring a lot more number 8 moves back. Like Sergio Parise is still like the pioneer. I think we don't do enough number 8 moves. Yeah. Just because he still does it and it catches people unaware.
Yeah.
Like we knew every time we played Italy, if they got a yellow card or whatever, he would run out, no look, back inside to
to himself.
Just back here over his head. Play on. Yeah. I'd love to see. I don't know. I'm just
that is the challenge of is to push the boundaries a little bit. I don't think that many. If you look at like giving Clive a big, if you look at Clive, there aren't a load of coaches out there who now push just try different things.
Yeah.
Do you remember they had those England shirts that were supposed to have reflectors on them? Were you around there? They put this like special stuff that was going to like.
Well, there was the camouflage kit. Wasn't the kit that you had at last year supposed to be camouflage so you couldn't see it? I was like, well, what use is that? You can't see your own team.
I like. Do you remember
it's white. How camouflage could it be?
Do you remember they tried to make the unitard kit where the shorts and shirt were combined?
Yes.
I was gutted about that. I would have gone out on the piss on that. full
like a morph suit.
Yeah, full unitard stack with socks and accessories like a jumpsuit.
Should we move on from the unitard?
We can do.
I've just got a horrible picture. Of unitard.
You were in one of those at the weekend, weren't you? On your stag do.
On your crazy
This is very civilised. They didn't even know people. This is how
they went for a really crazy bike ride with
the basket on the front and a loaf of bread. Going to a picnic.
We had a sick itinerary: spa, facials, and then do you know what? Went and fed some ducks. So put it there.
Crackers.
You're watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness.
Just to mark your card, next week on the show, we're joined by a man who coached Fiji to Olympic Sevens gold and a man that James fell out with during his schoolboy rugby career, Mr. Ben Ryan. I'm looking forward to welcoming him to the show, and we'll hopefully have some intelligence and sense when he comes to join us. I just quickly want to talk about the big story this week, which is ring fencing of the Premiership. Nothing confirmed at the moment, but there are rumoured, resurrected discussions around the Premiership at the moment that potentially relegation will be abandoned even as far as the end of this season, although the acting CEO at the RFU, Nigel Melville, has said that will not happen. Relegation will still happen. Just a gentle loosener for you. One up, one down, yes or no?
Do you know what? Having seen what it's like and played in the Super 15 in New Zealand, I think from a rugby development point of view, it's actually probably a good thing because
What is?
Ring fencing Premiership, because as a coach you can come in, you can develop a style of play, and you can go through with it for the entire season. You don't start a season with this big endeavour to play, suddenly get around Christmas, realise that you've got to change everything you're doing to win a certain way, and it's win at all costs, otherwise you get relegated, which then affects the quality of rugby in the way that we want to play. So that, I think,
depending on the coach.
Depending on the coach.
Enough to go stick to his guns.
Yes, that is true, but more often than not, when you stick to your guns unless you get sacked.
Yeah, but in the same breath, the Premiership is set up completely different to Super 14 rugby, Super 15 rugby, because
Just Super Rugby at the moment, if you want the detail.
okay.
Sorry, just pedantic.
Yeah.
I think there are 18 teams in
Oh,
it.
who cares? He's such a naughty.
Someone has to have some accuracy on this show.
So the Premiership is set up so differently to Super Rugby. Super Rugby is centrally funded, so everyone is under the control of their union, whereas we have a lot of owners who put a lot of money into the game, who want to have the dream of owning the Pirates and getting them into the Premiership. And that is what British sport is. It's the way it is run through all the leagues of every sport, and that's how it should be. You can't don't limit someone's dream, man.
Oh my God! You need to have a long hard look at yourself.
No, but you know what I mean.
That, I think, to be honest with you.
But if they ring fenced it, then Lansdowne would never buy Bristol, and then you wouldn't have his money in the game, and you wouldn't have Bristol. Beat.
And Mr. Ealing Trailfinders, who's pumping a lot of money in. There
Exactly.
What you saying? Is there a gig? Is there?
I think
Charles Peartell wouldn't have $1 million a year.
I think why it doesn't really work with at the moment is the actual spectators in terms of the numbers through the gates at the championship level, and the size of the grounds doesn't match what you need to be in the Gallagher Premiership. So that's more where I understand what they're coming from. But then if you're going to ring fence it, don't you have to ring fence anyone who has a stadium that can fit into that and allow them to be within that ring fence to do exactly what James said and be a breeding ground without that fear of failure. But then if they don't get the fans through the gate, they're just going to fold anyway.
But in terms of, I mean, you can see it from a fan's perspective, though, that without it, Super Rugby, by the middle of the season, has got half the teams playing for nothing. And that's fine in New Zealand, where the quality is always good enough and they the rivalry is strong enough. But in South Africa, you have teams who are miles off the pace with nothing to play for, drifting from the middle of the season towards the end, if not earlier.
Yeah, and I think also because their club rugby's, the quality throughout that is good. When you don't get players playing for their Super 15 side, they're then off playing for the local side, and they love that rivalry. It's probably not a great example, as it's a real kind of unique setup there. I think, to be honest with you, I just don't really. I'm so glad that other people make these kind of decisions. Because I just think that it has its pros and cons in both ways. I just think, as Mike said, maybe a rugby below that would suffer. Would it just completely disappear? Because would you just end up with a Premiership with no lower league stuff? Because I think that the relegation promotion in those leagues is great. But again, there are some teams that actually it causes them more trouble to get promoted than it would. It's better to be a big fish in a kind of small pond with no risk of any problems going up than it is to go up. You know what I mean? I speak to a few Championship players.
Where does the money go? Like if you've got that chance of promotion, you're getting a lot of money in, aren't you? So that's what is the appeal to sit at the top of the Championship? Yeah, for an owner, and that's why owners have so much power in our game, because we're not in that central contract where they are owners, and they do on numerous occasions, and we'll turn around to the RFU and tell them what they think, and Bruce Craig basically got on his high horse and then changed the Heineken Cup. Not a high horse, but felt we weren't getting a fair deal, so he went and he managed to change all of that. Took off the unions and gave it to the clubs. Yeah, exactly. And so that is what is the issue. I remember we had this issue. We had the conversation about central contracts in 2000, 2001, somewhere around then. And the clubs just went, well, if you do that, we won't play them. And then you'd have a group of international players that wouldn't play.
I agree with I do agree with everything you're saying. I will say that I think that rugby in general, we talked about the people getting through the gates and everything else. I think it's got a lot to learn in terms of its marketing, some of its PR, and other bits and pieces, how well it does that. I think we're still way behind other sports in terms of maximising that. I think there is still, as it's fading out, there's still this hangover in rugby of these old school players turn coaches, turn people's jobs to the boys kind of situation. I think where we've got, it's kind of a very, like you see a lot of clubs now are getting on social media bandwagon, but that before wasn't seen as anything, and I just think some of those bits and pieces are behind because of what revenues clubs make. I always find it funny when you get some bloke who stands up at the front at the beginning of the season, goes, hello, so I used to be in Formula One, and everyone goes, ooh, but it's like, mate, if you're that good, you still be in Formula One, because they pay way more than a rugby club's going to pay. And I just think when you've got people doing those bits and pieces, I think the clubs could do a lot more. Just going off track to promote them, and maybe some of those issues wouldn't be negated. Maybe clubs would actually make more money. It wouldn't be a problem with the relegation
I
stuff.
can see you come up with a business plan as we speak.
Yeah, a scheme.
Hask brand.
The ring fence would be a great idea for everyone who's inside the ring, because I think it gives you exactly what James says: freedom for coaches to actually play a platform of rugby that they want to play with no risk. Because you can and this is why Southern Hemisphere do get very skillful players and very good at taking opportunities, because they don't have to worry about tomorrow. A lot of you look at Johan Ackerman coming into Gloucester, for example. First year he's there, we're running it from our own we're playing 20 phases from our own 5 metre line, from Gloucester's own 5 metre line, because that's what he was used to doing in South Africa. Whereas now it's a little bit different. It's not that much different. He still wants to play, but he's obviously figured out.
I just want to ask you just one more question on what it's like to play in a relegation battle. So, in the interest of transparency, I grew up watching Bath at the Rec, and I would put Elvis Savili's try, going all Norse, against London Irish in 2003. Yeah, don't wince. There will be Bath fans out there who remember it. I'd put that in my top 3 memories of all time as a fan, because Bath were literally about to go down the plug hole, and in the 6th minute of injury time, they come to a try from nowhere, saved them, and they avoided the drop. You obviously played in it. I just wonder what the pressure, the intensity, the atmosphere was like over the course of those 2, 3, 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, that was difficult. Obviously, we went to the World Cup and came back, and ironically, the first time and only time in Bath Colours, I won at Welford Road. World Cup final the week before, Welford Road the next week, and we won. I didn't really know anyone who I was playing with, because we'd had so many changes. We'd lost a lot of internationals, and it was that era where we put our faith in the youth. Ollie Barkley had come in, and all these a lot of other young guys, Alex Crockett and Delve, and all these guys straight from sort of school.
Yeah,
and they just weren't ready for that step up. And they weren't. I mean, they turned into great players. But that Elvis, that try, saved us.
But do you remember what it was like as a player?
I don't really remember. I remember getting quite upset about it, because obviously Andrew Brownsword was the owner then, and I left. So that was 03. So I left at the end of the next season. And it was basically a little bit around that in terms of what he was putting into the playing group. And to go from, it's like what happened to England when England lost all those 7, 8 first choice guys, and we hadn't really built on our next generation. That was the same. We suddenly got rid of all the old seasoned pros, whether it be Ian Evans, Adideo Adebayo, Victor Obogu, Phil de Glanville, the list goes on. Eric Peters, Steve Ajomo, all these guys, and then suddenly you've got all these young kids coming in, and they're expected to fill those shoes. It's not something you can do. And I remember being frustrated a lot, probably through that period. But I can't remember exactly how angry I got.
No.
I was watching from afar the relegation battle with Wasps versus Newcastle when Tom Varndale made his one and only tackle of his career and stopped Sam Vesti, who was as equally shocked.
Oh, yes.
And tackled him. Honestly, you saw Tom Varndale, you're like, wow, I love Tom, unbelievable finisher, but he ain't going to make this. Oh my goodness, he's made a tackle. And stopped Sam Vesti.
That saved your bacon. And you were going back to us, it saved your contract.
I was, yeah. So,
amazing.
How did you feel?
I'd put it in my top 3 memories of all time.
But how did you feel throughout the season?
Well, I hated every minute of it, but the relief...
Mental health is an issue, so you can
exactly.
share.
I should really lie down.
There's deep things.
Exactly. I mean, I tell you what, Bath is... I don't really follow them as much nowadays. Obviously neutral.
Probably do.
I'm more into Exeter, actually. I quite like the culture Exeter.
Turncoats,
yeah. Swapped horses. I haven't really. That's not true. But I was purely saying it from a spectator's point of view, that actually sometimes a relegation battle is as much fun to go through as not for a player obviously, but for a spectator, the relief and the excitement and the drama is as much as it is if you're in the running for the title. It's just a purely relegation point.
How old were you then?
5 or 6, I don't know.
What did you?
How old do you think I am?
I actually don't know.
I know.
You haven't aged since I've met you.
No.
You've always looked like a naughty schoolboy. I mean, did you like have a little blazer and a hat? I tell you what, I imagine you watching a Bath game in a Bath shirt, little shorts, little sandals, and a hat with a propeller on it. Yeah. Imagine that kind of your kind of setup there.
It's a variation on the same gag that you crack almost every week.
No, I said you look like Just Willie. This is very different.
Well, it's the same kid in the caps, isn't it? You just added a propeller.
And you just added a Bath shirt on.
That's all you need. Just added a bit, you know. Can't polish a turd, but you can roll one in glitter. That's all I'm saying.
Knee-high socks and all that crap.
And a satchel.
We've got to. I mean, Tom, we've got to move on. We're sort of waffling
Who's
away.
telling you? Who's his voice? You're not even wired.
Voice of God.
It's not connected to anything. It's connected to the Bath radio, you boring bastard.
I know people that used to go out with these on a night out, just sort of be able to tap into
Shut up. I bet they thought they were part of S Club 7. People put straws behind their ears.
Let's move on, because we're talking about young kids coming through. Alex Dormbrandt, man of the match for Quins, who beat Exeter in the biggest result of last weekend in the Gallagher Premiership. Straight out of university, 6'4", 19 stone. And Paul Gustard said afterwards he's got a rig from university, but he can really play rugby, which goes against pretty much everything that you stand for in the game, where rigatoni is top of the tree and not much more. I know David Flatman said he's pretty similar to Nick Easton, and he's got dad's strength. I mean, do we think there's a comeback for the old school in the modern game?
I was really interested in the story until I asked you what position he played. Then he said he was 6. I was like, I don't care.
Barnes' called for him to start for England in his
of course he has.
Gone and forgotten.
I think the old sausage rig it's not going out of rugby anytime soon. I think
look at Billy's got a bit of a sausage.
But he's actually doing something with budgie smugglers now, isn't he? So have you seen him? He was reclining on a set of inflatable balls.
I mean, we've got a picture of him this week. He gets into our frame of.
I mean, in terms of rigs go, he's not doesn't look like a ridiculous rig. No. Obviously, it's just a bit softer around the edges.
But like you said, Minty,
function comes first.
Yeah, Nick Easter was, a
titan.
Yeah, but had incredible skills. I think if he's your rig doesn't really come into. I did say in one of the earlier shows that having a rig like a burst beanbag is probably not that acceptable in professional sport, considering performance nutrition play a part. But if you're the bollocks and you look like that, I'd roll with it. I'd pull it off. And also, there is a lot of man strength.
Sometimes, if people go to the other side and try to get that rig, it actually affects them when they don't play that well. So you've got to find the balance between. Look at my career. You've got to.
I was 6.
Because you need to stop taping your fingers together.
Take them all. They just stay on. Sadly.
But you've got to do your job, which is professionally fuel yourself properly, which I think James would say is unbelievably important. And you've got to do that. If your rig doesn't change, then it doesn't change. As long as you're putting the right stuff into your body and you're training the right way, sometimes you're just that way.
But I love that for him. That's just put him on the map already. Like, obviously, great performance, because I heard about that. I saw Twitter, saw Danny Kerr tweet about it, talk about it. So I had a little look. But it's great, bit of spice, sausage rig, getting in the mix. It doesn't even look that bad.
Yeah. No.
And he's. I think it's quite nice. He's now got a little bit of spice about him. People are talking about him. So,
who is the best player with the worst rig you've ever come up against? And while you're thinking about that, the Josh Lucy story from 03, is that right? That Woodward made him get up and take his shirt off and say, "I want you all to look like this."
To look like that. Yeah.
How did Leonard take that?
Leonard put his hand up and went, Clive, that's not happening, is it?
Right.
And he's like, "Well, we've got to try, Jace. We've got to try.
Effort will be rewarded."
He's like that. Right, bend over. Look, Josh, let's have a scrum. Bend over. Suddenly his neck's up his ass. I think. What was it? How good did Danny Kerr play, by the way? When you play a brand of rugby like that, you should have Danny Kerr as your 9.
Yeah.
I love Danny Kerr. He's got skills to play, but he's done stuff on the training field and in the games that I only dream of doing. He's
good bounce back as well, having Eddie Jones.
But I think that was probably just another little, Eddie just a little sharpener. I would say the worst rig of anyone that I have ever played. He's going to hate me for saying this, but I reckon McAvoy has got one.
He was the first person that jumped in my head. I haven't really played with him.
No, he's kind of unbelievable rugby player, but the setup is kind of a whole, but it just goes to show you just don't need to.
We've already talked about the worst rig on the best player.
Who's that?
Rabini Thatharambuka.
We did, yeah.
You're absolutely right.
We did.
He was out of there. I love that story about talking about Jace, of the story. When he got to the end of his career, was he excused the warm-up? He said to Woodward, he said, I'll either give you a really good warm-up or I'll give you a game, but there's no way I'm giving you both.
I wouldn't have noticed, but it could be very, very, easily true.
Just sat on the can reading the paper until it's time to go out.
I've never seen a man, Jason Leonard, who can literally it seems like the whistle's just gone, and I've just got back in the changing room with my full kit, and he's left because he's got corporate gigs to do. It's just ridiculous. So normally when you turn up to a game, you arrive with your bag, you've got at least 2 pairs of boots in there. I'd probably take 3. You've got your suit, you've got your bits and bobs if you use stretching techniques, you've got your warm-up top, you've got spares of this and that. Leonard literally turns up with a rucksack about that big. I think he's just got pants in it and a pair of boots and 1 pair of boots, and that is it. And as soon as the whistle goes, he's not on the field. Bang, bang, bang. Is Jay still here? No, he's gone. Trying to get to sign his shirt. There's always one missing. Leonard, because he's already out the door. He's already padding his pockets.
When you gave up, did you have to work? Do you work quite hard now to stay in shape or not?
I would say I try to, but I don't. Sometimes corporate lunches get in the way.
They do.
But
it's a different kind of training.
But no, I try to.
The most middle class comment ever. Oh, corporate lunches. Oh, absolutely killing the diet.
That's just what it is.
Royal functions.
I'm sure you've already used a corporate already today when you were like on Saturday. Yeah, I was supposed to do a bit of corporate.
Yes, you were.
Oh, yeah. So, no. When I say corporate, not paid for the club. So injured players have to do stuff.
Always giving back.
Yeah, no. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about getting paid. Every time they make me go do it, they go, "You play for the club. Why aren't you doing it? You haven't played." And I go, "Charity starts at home."
Fair point.
Yeah.
So what were we talking about?
How hard you train?
So try to. I've just signed up to do a thing called the Take on the Pyreneans. So start in San Sebastian and end up in Perpignan.
Do you take the Queen's Corgis for a walk?
I won't take him on that.
No, I thought that might be the names, Pyrenees and something else.
Easy down. There aren't many left, all right?
Are they not?
No. She's not having any more, so they're just slowly disappearing.
That's a shame.
You've got to know your material before you start cracking gags like that.
I'm not worried about it. I don't feel bad. All you're talking to me is if I care, it was a great gag. Does he walk the Corgis? Turns out they're all dying. Okay, chin up.
So it wasn't a great gag, was it?
Well, it was. He still hasn't admitted he probably does. No wonder they're all dying.
Maybe you've been taking and then realise it's dying.
Yeah, what? It isn't, you shit. I'm unbelievable.
I am making the biggest comeback.
Yeah, I am. I'll surprise you all. Trust me, because I'm sick. Just wait and see it.
No,
I'm not sick.
How much of this is actually going to make?
I don't know. I dread to think what a horrible time the editor's having of all this. Just to touch on a couple of the other weekend results from the Gallagher Premiership. Big win for Newcastle over Northampton. Sorry about that. Saracens hammering Wasps. Sorry about that too. Leicester and Bath half an eye on relegation at the moment. I mean, it's what is it? There are 9 points between 4th and 12.
18 to 15 points, 14 points. Yeah. Something, is it?
It's 24 to 15. Yeah,
I think the relegation is going to be more interesting than the top end this year, because there are potentially some huge clubs that could.
Is that indicative of a season where no teams are playing very well, or is that credit to a league where it is so competitive that no one gets away?
I think I would always go for the second answer to that. I think you give credit to the league. I think you look at what Bristol have come up and done. They've sort of taken a leaf out, obviously. I was going to say they've taken a leaf out of Exeter's book, except they've just gone and bought everyone that they could. But the brand of rugby they're playing, Thacker, by the way.
I know.
I mean,
against his former club as well.
I love the line break he made, and he actually was catching them up sorry, I just spit all over me. He was actually catching them up as a hooker, and then he's got a dive to score. He's got everything.
But he did that actually a couple of times, didn't he, for Leicester? But when he was it last season or before, when he made his debut, he came off the bench a couple of times and scored some unbelievable tries. But then I don't think if his mauling credentials and scrumming credentials were quite up to what. I'm not saying that's my opinion, but you can imagine at Leicester maybe that was. No. You got flash boots, long hair, and you can score 6 tries. Not really a forward.
Who would you pick to go down at this point?
Can't
say London Irish because they're already there. I know just to develop your theme with.
No, I wouldn't say
anything with Ireland.
Exactly.
I wouldn't even.
Munster. I'd like that to go.
At the start of the season, I thought I was looking around Worcester, but
they've picked up one of them.
You dare.
I don't think.
Give you more time to do podcasts, Hask.
I don't think Saints are in a great place. at the moment. I'm not saying they can't get themselves out of it because they've still got quality
I will
players.
disagree with you,
I think they're missing a world class
Blindside.
or a player that plays.
Yeah.
But then Worcester are playing some good stuff now when they get it right. So I'm
Leicester are conceding barrel loads of points at the moment.
Leicester look like a team that are confused what they are. You know, we talk about Bath in terms of, you said identity. Do they know? I think I watched the game. It was last year, Gloucester and Leicester, and I found it tough to figure. It looked like two teams that didn't really know what their identity was. And Gloucester have seen Johan Ackermann's brought in this identity, whereas I still think Leicester, they have all these backs now and they talk about how good their backs are, but when did you ever talk about anything but a Leicester pack in terms of you don't go to Leicester and win games. You go and get mauled and get beaten up.
How good is it to see Ellis Genge back?
Was he called the Baby Rhino or something?
Yeah, I love it. He's a great character of a bloke as well. I think he's
because when you're talking about people who've had life experiences, he's had one or two of those along the way, isn't he?
He has, but I just think he's got this unbelievable. Looks like Dredrick Tatum from The Simpsons, and he's kind of got everyone has this kind of very intimidating demeanour, but actually he's very funny, very down to earth. I think it's great seeing him running out of the tunnel actually for his for the game, and then running off and stopping, having a photo with the kid. I've got a lot of time for him. I loved his when he was injured. He was on doing these live Instagram lives on his mobility scooter, and obviously he started off quite serene, and by the end of it, he was turning to the pike in ears. He was doing wheelies down the thing. So I thought that was quite impressive. But I will take great offence to you about the Saints.
I haven't said
you haven't said a name yet.
I still think I'm going to stick with Worcester.
Okay. Interesting. But Worcester Saints next, relegation decider. Better get your pedals back on quickly.
I think, do you want to think about the frustrating thing about? I know every team will see this, but having spent the last few weeks watching, against Newcastle, against my opinion, Newcastle fans will probably bollock me, but I thought we should have been up 25, 30 points.
You're right, Mike.
I'm just going to look.
Reach your telephone. It's calling the cab. We've only got 2 minutes to go.
I thought 25,
the limo's pulling up.
I thought Saints should be up 25, 30 points. I think we're a very, very good side. And I think we've just need to show a bit more kind of ability to finish games off, understand where we are in the scoreline, and finish it off.
You're desperately trying to scrabble out of this hole.
I'm not.
We'll clip that out and we'll send it through to the bosses. Don't worry.
See,
I think it's a really good club playing really good rugby.
It is.
Someone who slipped under the radar is Sale. No one thinks that Sale. I wouldn't have really put it down that Sale was in trouble, but they are second bottom with 16 points. So
you can change your mind every week from here on in. It's going to be a hell of a ride.
I want to keep backing Saints to this thing.
I want to talk about sighting, but you've both been sighted, haven't you? We might save that for another week.
No, never.
What are the biscuits like?
Never been sighted.
Have you never been sighted?
No. I've been sighted.
Poor Jamie Roberts. We'll do that another week because actually that's a big juicy subject. So instead, let's move on to
when is their sightings? The two guys. What is it?
Chris Pennell and Carl Eastman.
Ironic. The smallest man ever on a field hits the second smallest man on the field, and then
did Chris Pennell get cited?
Yeah. Right. See,
he's the nicest man in the world. He looks like a geography teacher.
I do have an issue with that because I don't. He said you got to treat it the same as a kick. I don't think you do.
Okay.
If it's a pass, I don't think Charlie should just let that fly to touch and shout at the guy who threw it. But I just don't think, because if he'd have caught it before it, you're technically jumping into a tackle as well.
Yes.
Do you treat it the same as a kick? Just a ridiculously bad pass?
One of the nuances, isn't it? Yeah, I see your point. I don't really have a view.
Because that's the
I ask questions.
Unless we're talking about Bath, then you definitely got
I can't do anything with that.
There's been quite a lot of penalties given away where someone's thrown a high pass, not as high as that was, because Charlie did have to jump about 6 foot in the air, but where they've jumped, it's been a little high, but it's been at the line, and guys will jump into it, and the guy will make a tackle, and he gets penalised for tackling the guy in the air.
Yeah,
but that's not the reason. The reason for jumping to have some safety is through a kick. It's not for a bad pass.
Yes,
if you choose to jump, technically you're jumping into the tackle.
Good point. We'll have the laws amended for you.
Well, no, I just want some clarity on laws.
We'll have a whole show on sighting because it's quite fun. Because my favourite is some of the most violent people in the world that become sighting.
Yes.
Wade Dooley.
Wade Dooley.
So I have a day off.
Yeah.
And I've been through some sighting stuff, and some of the ridiculous, some of the people that they get in, the questions they ask you. Like when I was saying about my one, I said,
We're going to save it for.
All right,
we're going to save it for an exciting show.
An exciting action-packed show, right?
I'll see myself out. Right, time for this week's Guinness Perfect Pour. And I have such high hopes for this week's event. Hask's weekly test in 119 and a half seconds, because that is how long it takes to pour the perfect pint of Guinness. It is time. Are you a massive Harry Potter fan?
Yes, I am 100% a Harry Potter fan.
We are asking you questions not on Harry Potter, but on Just William. Oh. There we are. No, we're going to do it on Harry Potter. If you fail on this, okay, so there are 20 questions. Yeah, you can help. If you get less than 15, we're never having you back on this show again.
Well,
you're playing for your future.
You obviously don't want a show to carry on then. You obviously don't want this to be a success.
Last week's show was such fun.
Isn't it just strange though?
Isn't it more exhausting this week?
Some like the confidence in my own ability to hang on a rating after selling my whole life on social media.
Not in the words of me, in the words of Shaking Stevens. I was absolute boy, and the ratings are.
I do one. I think I do one tweet a year, and I've got the same amount of followers as Hask.
Right, don't look at the answers. Are you ready? Question number 1. I've never watched or read Harry Potter.
You wait until I struggle and then step in, because I might need a second to do it.
So I have no idea whether these are correct or not.
Okay.
Question number 1. Gryffindor's ghost is nearly headless Nick.
Yeah.
But what is his full name?
That's a good question.
Oh my goodness. As if they've done with that.
This could be a first ball dismissal.
I think it is.
Definitely. I rather like the name.
Sir Nicholas de Mimsy something, isn't it? Yes, Sir Nicholas.
I can't remember.
You're almost there. You've got Sir Nicholas de Mimsy.
I can't remember. I don't know. I can't remember.
I'm going to give it to you anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington.
Oh, Porpington. All right, fine. Sorry, yeah.
But that is the kind of name you would remember as well.
Yeah, one of your mates.
What a great name.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I was at school with him, actually.
We'll call my kids that.
I think I borrowed his tuck box. Question number 2. New students need to learn the secrets of the castle. So how many staircases does Hogwarts have?
These are like good questions. I know.
You had to know this was coming.
25.
No.
How many?
142. You can't have that.
A lot more than that.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Dumbledore has a scar above his left knee that is the perfect map of what?
Who
has
got these questions?
You've got to think of this logically.
The perfect map of...
We're in the right city, and I will use it to get home.
The Tube?
Yeah, the London Underground.
London Underground, okay.
Did you know that?
No.
Right. Question number 4. Where does Vernon Dursley work, and what does the company produce?
I know he had a big meeting with the Japanese.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
You should know this, actually. A little bit like your club sponsor.
Work for him.
Does he work for building merchants?
Something like that.
But Vernon Dursley, what is it?
This is really poor.
Yeah, I can't think, I don't know.
Grunnings, and they are a drill manufacturer.
Drill.
Did you know that?
No.
I knew this drill.
What position does Harry play on the Quidditch team?
Seeker.
Correct.
Yeah. So there you go.
What is the name of Hagrid's dog?
Fluffy.
No.
Oh, no, sorry.
Fang.
That's not. I was about to say, Fluffy's the 3-headed dog. Fang.
Correct. What's the name of the potion that grants good luck in Harry Potter?
Felicis.
Oh, very good. What magical plant does Harry use to breathe underwater in the books?
Hold on. Wait. It's gillyweed.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Don't laugh. What is the length of Harry's wand?
6¼ inches.
No, that's yours.
It's 11 and...
You're absolutely right.
Is it?
11 inches, yeah. Harry's packing.
You wouldn't know what 11 inches are. I could fold mine in half and show you if you want.
Next question. What wood is Harry's wand made? I don't know what kind of a book this is.
It's, hold on. It's got... it is...
The
birch.
And the ivy.
What was it?
The...
Rosewood, isn't it?
And the ivy.
The
Christmas Carol.
Holly. So holly, isn't it? With the phoenix flame.
Yes.
Phoenix flame.
Which mirror did Harry see his parents in?
Oh, the... hold on. I watched this the other day.
The mirror of...
Erisette.
What are the names of the Weasley kids? 1, 2, 3,
okay,
4,
you've got
5, 6,
George,
7.
Percy, Ron... George, Percy, Ron...
I know there's 3 you're going to miss.
Ginny.
Good.
Actually, you've just got one I thought you'd miss.
George, Percy,
Do
Ginny.
you want me to keep the numbers for you?
Yeah, hold on.
George,
Percy, Ron, Ginny, Fred, George,
Done that twice.
Yeah.
Hold on.
You've got 5 at the moment, haven't
How many am I missing?
Vunipola and Walker.
you? Yeah, you got 2. You're giving him 2 easy clues.
Is that too easy?
Yeah.
It's not Mako.
Hold on.
Yeah, he wouldn't get that one, I don't think.
Hold on. There's Fred, George,
I only got
Ron,
Rex.
Ginny.
Quarter of an hour over time.
Sorry.
Vunipola was on the show 2 weeks ago.
Bill.
Oh yes, yeah. Hold on, don't help me, Bill.
And said Vunipola.
Oh yeah, but I don't know.
And
I didn't get that. Oh come on.
What symbol is on the Hufflepuff crest? Charlie is the other one. Are we getting bored of this now?
Fuck. What's
This is the most animated I've ever seen.
Yeah.
What symbol is on the Hufflepuff crest, whatever that might be?
Oh crap! I should know this.
Yep. You should know all of these. Good game's a quick game.
I don't know. Pass.
Badger. Who replaced Dumbledore as headmaster in the Order of the Phoenix?
I know. That woman. What's she called?
Can I give the name?
No,
Yes.
wait.
Everyone wants to go home.
Shut up, will you? We talk about Bath. No one gives a crap about Bath. This is Harry Potter.
All our rugby audience left 20 minutes ago.
What's her name? She's a bird.
It's
Really
like the
high
final
squeaky
line.
bum.
She becomes a quite high inquisitor. That's her title. But she's
not her name.
Dolores Umbridge.
Very good.
Yeah.
What's the name of Hagrid's giant brother?
Oh, Grob.
Grob.
Who was Ginny Weasley's first boyfriend?
I can remember.
I know.
Snogging that guy.
Yeah, it's one of Harry's mates, isn't it? From Gryffindor. It's what's he
If
called?
I read my book in between the.
Was it Seamus? Was it?
Nah, it's not Seamus. It's the what was the name?
Michael Corner.
Oh, yeah, I never got that.
Who is Hogwarts herbology professor? Who is a herbology professor and the head of Hufflepuff House?
Shut
Who
up.
is Hogwarts herbology professor and the head of Hufflepuff House?
Hold on. This is so annoying.
You have him at your Christmas dinner.
Yeah, Sprout.
you do.
Professor Sprout.
What's her first name? His or hers?
It's hers. So I can't remember.
Pomona. Parcel tongue is the language of which type
Snakes.
of animals? Or snake? Yeah, you can have snakes or serpents. Which Harry Potter word is now in the Oxford English Dictionary? Is it Hogwarts, Voldemort, or Muggle?
Muggle.
What are the final question? What are the 3 unforgivable curses?
The Imperious Curse, Vada Kedavra, and the Cruciatus Curse.
Yeah, very good. I'll give you that. I'm being told you got 8, but I'm going to have a recount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've lost the other bits of it. You can have 6.
No, I've got more than that.
6.
I've got 10.
You want 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You got 15.
Yeah, I did.
I'm being told you didn't get 15.
No,
I'm going to give you 15.
I did.
Which certainly means you make it back next week.
Let's put it this way: whoever's in your ear doesn't get filled in if I didn't get 15.
Whoever's in my ear doesn't want you back next week, I think is the...
Well, all right. See how the show goes then, yeah? I'll start my own podcast, in my garage. Just an hour of me telling all the stories that I wouldn't tell on this.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah.
What would you like your specialist... That was 45 minutes of Harry Potter nonsense.
Listen. Some of those questions were pretty hard. Yeah. They're not like legit normal...
I'm not sure that all the answers would be got from either reading the book or watching the...
Yeah.
What would you like next week's subject to be?
Sherlock Holmes.
Genuinely?
Yeah, we're going to go Sherlock Holmes. But remember, just go steady with it. It's supposed to be funny. Like, we want to complete it in the perfect pour time, which is the time it takes to pour a Guinness.
So everybody who tuned in
119
hoping for some insightful rugby chat, apologies for the last quarter of an
we've
hour.
covered
For everyone else,
relegation. We've covered Burgess. We've covered old school
I
stuff.
just talked about the last 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
I
You
wasn't
just
talking about
took
the
to
first
answer.
very good
Yeah,
45
to
minutes
indulge
of the
you in
show.
Harry Potter.
We didn't indulge me. It's because every time they came up with some other thing, no one could get anything.
What is really interesting is that every time we do the perfect pool, you just end up in a bad mood, whether you do well or badly.
No, it's because the people who set the questions are here to embarrass me.
Calm.
I'm on edge at the moment.
Relax.
I'm on edge. I'm so
He's
Get
just
some
found out
painkillers.
Saints are going down.
We're not. Oh my god! You haven't, mate. The Saints fans are like.
So I'll give you Mr. Ealing Trail Finder's number.
Yeah.
He'll come.
I wouldn't do that. Seriously.
I think we'll leave it there for this week, unless there's any other pearls of wisdom you'd like to offer to the people. No?
No.
No, back
Anyone
next
got
week
anything
for
fun on?
more.
For the-
What are you doing next week? You must be off on a holiday or something interesting.
I was actually, when you said that I wasn't here next week, that
checking
was
the
another
diary.
reason why I got I was like, well, it's in my diary.
What was it?
And what is it?
No, I'm here next week.
Oh. We're just freshening things up. Do dial in.
For the next 2 weeks, I thought.
Oh.
Yeah, but there you go.
No,
Basically been traded for a ginger.
momentary. Yeah, we're just swapping in and out. That is it for this week. Thank you very much indeed, as always, for watching and for listening to The House of Rugby, brought to you by Joe, together with our friends at Guinness. A reminder, we're a YouTube show. Do subscribe via the YouTube channel. Do subscribe via the podcast, wherever it is that you normally get those. We'd love a review. Every bit of constructive feedback is very much appreciated. You can also download some of the Joe's other programming that you might have missed, notably Unfiltered with James O'Brien and Boys Don't Cry with Russell Kane, both very good listens indeed. Thank you very much indeed to...
Does Russell Kane do stuff with Joe?
Yes.
I really like him. He's that real funny comedian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really got to meet him. We've got to do him. We've got to get him on. Sorry, that was weird. Let's rewind that. He's a really good guy. We've got to get him on the show.
We should
I still like to do it. Yeah. I'd like to take him to dinner. I want to be friends with him. I think he's very funny.
Russell Kane will be your host on House of Rugby next week. That'll take it to some interesting
Will
places.
he?
No, sorry.
Oh, that would be so good if he was. Because you've got to go back into a Bath fans convention.
I'm
Your
not a
full
Bath
gear,
fan
Nigel
anymore.
Knowles. Yeah.
Ow, I absolutely loved it. 1988 relegation was so important.
He's actually studying the leagues around the world and their sponsorship names. This week.
Such enormous.
Someone's got to bring some quality to this show. Thank you very much indeed, as always, for listening. You two, get lost. See you in 7 days. Oh, now what? I'm trying to say goodbye.
Sorry,
Everyone wants to go. Bar you. You will not shut up.
I'm just saying that if I didn't know you had family, I'd say you're a virgin.
And on that bombshell. See you next week.
You've been watching The House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.co.uk for the facts.